Hey guys, today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on what I'm now using as my new personal computer. I have actually returned the Surface that was in my previous Everyday Tech Carry video in favor of now using this iPad here. So that iPad is now what's completely powering my entire setup. So, after seeing that intro, I hope you didn't conclude that I was actually using an iPad as my personal device. Although I have indeed gotten a new iPad in exchange for the Surface that I was using. But right now, that iPad is actually connected via sidecar to my monitors, and the actual computer that's running it is the M2 Pro Mac Mini. I think this is probably a computer that I'm going to stick with for a really long time, and I'm pretty happy with this purchase. Before I had the Mac Mini, I was actually using an M1 Macbook Air, which was my personal laptop, and I just recently sold that for a pretty decent price. And I would actually recommend, if any of you guys do have M1 MacBook Airs or M1 MacBook Pros, that you guys sell them as well, because the M3 release is right around the corner, and I feel like the value that these M1 devices are going to hold over time is going to go down pretty significantly after the M3 is released. And my girlfriend also has an M1 MacBook Air, so if I really do need to use a laptop, I can just use hers. But yeah, I guess I'll go into some of the decisions as to why I chose to actually use, or why to actually switch in my MacBook Air for a M2 Mac Mini. So for me specifically, the Mac Mini does a pretty good job of just kind of seamlessly integrating into my desk. I kind of have it on a stand right in the back right there, and it just slots in a really small space. And for the amount of computing power it has, it's honestly a pretty good decision, I feel like. I did specifically choose to opt to the M2 Pro for two main reasons, and for me that was primarily because the base model of this, even though it starts at just 600, you only get 8 gigabytes of RAM, and on top of that you also only get 256 gigabytes of storage. I feel like both of those are kind of deal breakers for me, so I need to have at least 16 gigs of RAM and at least 512 GB of storage. Now, if you elect to do both of those options, you're immediately going to be spending $400 more. And for that much price, I feel like it's better to just go ahead and just upgrade straight to the M2 Pro, which you get 16 gigabits of memory and 512 gigs of SSD storage standard. And for that, you also get 2 more Thunderbolt ports, and I think you also can output to another external display, which if I decide to actually replace this with a third display in the future, that would be something that would be pretty useful to me. I think this is really where Apple really gets you with their pricing model and pricing strategy. I know that most people are probably going to be in that similar situation as I am in, where 8 gigs and 256 gigs of storage is not enough, so they're going to naturally want to opt into the higher models, and that's probably where their pricing ladder lands. And if you are in the need to have a mobile computer, you could still technically carry this around. It's like, this is really, really light. I think it's probably only like 4 or 5 pounds. And you can also buy cases on Amazon, like travel cases on Amazon, for about like $40 for these things as well. So in that regard, I feel like they do a pretty good job in terms of just being portable, although you will probably need some type of external display wherever you're going, or alternatively, you could use the money that you saved from buying like a laptop instead to buy a portable mini display as well. They also have a pretty good selection of I/O, and I feel like I think the Mac Mini is probably one of the few Apple products that actually does have good I/O. You have 4 Thunderbolt ports. You have 4 Thunderbolt ports, and you also have HDMI 2.1 and I think you also get like 2 normal USB-As as well as a dedicated Ethernet slot, which is honestly pretty good for an Apple product. I do wish that they included some type of I/O on the front, maybe like how they have on the Mac Studio computers, having like maybe 2 Type-C ports and an SD card reader, but I feel like you can still work with this pretty well. And for me, this ends up like hooking up to my Thunderbolt dock anyways, so that's not too big of an issue for me. Alright, so if you're a student, I feel like you could also do an alternative approach. For myself and for my needs, I chose to go with the highest variant and the base model of the highest variant, so that's the M2 Pro. I intend to use this computer for a long time, so I feel like if I want to do anything more intensive in video editing or like code builds in the future, that could be useful for me. But if you're a student and you're starting at college, I feel like the base M2 Mac Mini is honestly a pretty good bet. You can get it under student education pricing for about, I think, $500, and if you really want to, you could also upgrade the memory of that as well. But for $500, you're getting a really powerful computer, and with the money you save, you could probably now also get like another product like an iPad, which is pretty useful for students in general, especially lots of assignments nowadays are done digitally, and having an iPad and also buying the Apple Pencil to pair that with would also honestly complement this very well. You can use the iPad for most day-to-day activities while you're actually in class, and it'll keep your backpack pretty light as well. And then when you get back to your dorm room, you can also always use the full power of a full-blown desktop with the M2 Mac Mini. Another good advantage of this approach is that you get almost all 3 of these things for like about $1,000, and if you want to spend a little bit more to get like a better iPad, you could add like about $200 more to that. But for just that much investment, you get to honestly be able to use a lot of the Apple ecosystem and use a lot of their products together. So I guess that would be my recommendation if you are a student. But yeah, I guess that pretty much wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I guess this is one of my more like, again, something that's a little bit related to my setup. But yeah, so hope to see you guys in the next one. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Cool. See you guys in the next one.